Hello everyone, my name is Lorenz Kirchner. I'm managing partner at MM1. I'm happy to host everyone who's in the call here in Connectory to the official launch event of the AIoT User Group. There's more people coming in, so maybe we'll wait another couple of seconds, I would say, not much longer. Again, I'm doing the short intro again. Lorenz Kirchner is my name, partner with MM1 here from Stuttgart. I'm happy to host a few people here in Stuttgart Connectory and on our Teams call for the official launch event of the AIoT User Group. A couple of preliminaries, actually. This call is being recorded, so for data privacy reasons, this is what I have to inform you about. We will do a couple of things. First of all, as I just said, this is the formal and the official launch of the AIoT User Group. Because this is something and a new concept, probably is not totally aware, I will spend a couple of minutes, a few minutes, about 10 minutes talking about what we actually mean by AIoT and what the AIoT User Group actually is. We'll then have our first Ignite talk, Ignite AIoT talk, delivered by Mark Haberland, who's already here in the trenches, waiting for his speech. I think this is going to be a very fascinating talk about AI and IoT in the world of soccer. The question is a soccer player a thing actually or not? But Mark will talk more about that. And then the presentations will be rounded up by Dirk Slama, talking a little bit in more detail about our AIoT Ignite framework, which is the major content asset database that we as the IoT User Group are going to build and expand on in the future. So again, warm welcome here in Stuttgart Connectory and in the world out there to the launch event of the AIoT User Group. What the heck is AIoT? We asked Wikipedia. So it's the Italian Academy of Orthodontic Technology. Very interesting. It's probably not what you expected. In fact, it's something different. So at least we think it's something different. And here in the very recent article in Visual Capitalist, the headline makes it very clear. AIoT is when artificial intelligence meets the Internet of Things. And I'm talking about the AIoT User Group that I'm representing here today. We are a bunch of practitioners in the fields of IoT and AI, and we came together first in January this year, and we all sensed a feeling of these worlds are somehow separated, somehow intertwined, depending on which perspective you have. You come from the AI perspective, you don't understand what's the challenges about doing something in a real world, in a real product. If you come from the IoT perspective, you have a challenge understanding what is AI actually doing, this whole model training and so on. A little bit more precise, AI and IoT work together in our thinking to create smart connected products. You see this on the slide here, this both on thing level as well as on the, let's say, internet or cloud level. It's about really driving connectivity, bringing things into the internet. It's about adding intelligence both in the asset itself, a smart product, as well as in the swarm of assets, the swarm intelligence. Again, this is the core, let's say, of our AIoT Ignite framework. Dirk will talk about it at more length later today. But this is what we are focusing on as the AIoT User Group. And so you know a little bit more about who really is the AIoT User Group. The AIoT User Group, this is where it all started. I don't know, is Thorsten Winterberg on the call?
Yeah, Lawrence, thanks.
I'm handing over to you, Thorsten, to explain a little bit who is the AIoT User Group.
Yeah, Lawrence, very good question. Well, it all began with some phone calls.
You are mute now, Thorsten.
Oh, somebody muted me. Okay. So it all began with some phone calls last year, initiated by Dirk Slama and, of course, you, Lawrence, where we talked about, hey, shouldn't we do something about the AI and IoT stuff? Well, what could we do? And then we came up with the plan to meet somewhere with several experts. And then this really, really nice thing happened that we met in Stuttgart in the Bosch Connectory. You see a picture of all the people that have been there. Only problem, the women factor was not that high. So that's probably something we're working on. Well, there were people from M1, from Bosch, from the University of Cologne, from Deutsche Post, from Tomorrow Labs, Clariba, from Opitz, from Recognizer. And it was really, really fun having 3 days together to discuss all this AI and IoT stuff. And we all had the feeling of a bit of coming home, talking to all these people who all were very, very open-minded. It was a great, great, great experience. And something more happened, Lawrence, yes? You're going into that now. What was the outcome of this?
Well, the outcome of this was, I thank you very much for bringing us back to that funny and happy time when we still could meet in person in larger groups. But obviously, even Corona and COVID couldn't prevent us from continuing to work together and having talks. And we all, building on this great first boot camp we had in January, we agreed we need to take this further, and we need to create or build something or start something that we call the AIoT ecosystem. And this is a very rough sketch of this AIoT ecosystem, where we as the IoT user group are a key contributor into what's shown here in the vertical, which is the AIoT Ignite framework. So a really public open source framework where we invite anyone who's on the call now to participate and contribute. And this is expected to become the major repository with additional offerings like consulting and training, and the ability to reach out to further partners and certification offerings. So this is the AIoT ecosystem that we're expecting to build. The AIoT User Group is what we're launching today. And we also, in the AIoT ecosystem, we have a mission statement, which is to help players in the industrial space remain competitive by using the potential of AI and IoT, the way we already explained, the way we will explain further today and in the near future. Really, what this AIoT User Group is about, it's about really bringing together and sharing good practices, processing those good practices and making them available and applicable through knowledge sharing, hands-on training, and also additional professional services. So this is roughly the mission statement, what we aim to achieve as the AIoT User Group within the AIoT ecosystem. Specifically, what are the activities that we as the AIoT User Group are planning to conduct? Again, all building on this framework of bringing together AI and IoT on the cloud and on the thing level. We are going to stage Ignite talks. The first one we'll hear in a minute, more or less, Mark Haberland talking about AIoT in the world of soccer. We're going to collect case studies. Once you look in our repository, which is going public this moment, actually, there are already first case studies in there regarding large hadron colliders, very, very, very big assets, down to tightening tools, smaller assets, but swarm assets, obviously. So case studies, collecting case studies is another of our activities. We'll conduct boot camps. This is actually the second one. wasn't really a boot camp, let's say, but it was a hybrid, bringing together the already extending group of people that we saw in the picture earlier. And finally, again, we are going to, as the AIoT User Group, contribute to this Ignite AIoT Framework, which Dirk Slama is going to expand upon a little bit later. Last but not least, we are open. We are open for you. We are open. We are free. Come check us out on www.aiotusergroup.org. We are looking for contributions. We're looking for contributors, and we are going to make this great. And we're looking forward to work with you. Thank you very much. I'm handing over now to Mark. Mark, warm welcome. You introduced yourself, I hope, at least.
I will. Thank you so much.
I'm looking forward to your talk about AIoT in this world of soccer.
Absolutely.
Thanks.
Perfect. And thank you again for the warm welcome. My name is Mark Haberland. I'm the CEO and founder of Clariba. We're a big data consultancy in both Europe and the Middle East. I'd like to start with a video just to get you excited and get you started. So without further ado, let me switch over.
Digital transformation is changing the world we live in today. Every industry, every service is impacted by rapid digital change.
Professional football is the most popular sport in the world and has not been immune to the digitalization of its operations, matches, and athletes' performance. Clubs around the world are striving to achieve a competitive advantage and increase performance from the immense data available. The era of the connected athlete is here, and SAP technology provides the best platforms and analytics tools to make it happen.
With references ranging from Aspire Academy in Qatar to other football clubs and federations in Europe and the Middle East, Clariba, an SAP Big Data Analytics expert partner, has developed Clariba Act-In Football. The Act-In Football solution revolutionizes day-to-day decision-making for high-performing football organizations by providing players, coaches, and managers real-time performance feedback to take action, maximize impact, and ensure success. Clariba Act-In Football integrates data ranging from medical history, performance and research data, match analysis, GPS training data, to technical and tactical session information using SAP Cloud Platform technology, the leading enterprise cloud platform service by SAP. By applying state-of-the-art visualizations and analytic algorithms to create meaningful and relevant insights, Clariba Act-In Football provides managers, coaches, and players the ability to analyze and take action at any time from their mobile devices, whether on the pitch, at the training center, or elsewhere. Let's see Clariba Act-In Football in action by following Peter, an up-and-coming under-21 player at one of Europe's leading clubs. On his way to the dressing room, Peter reviews the scheduled training session for the day on his mobile phone. Peter is happy about his recent performance indicators that he compares with the team's averages and his personal progression. The mobile app also prompts Peter for his physical condition, valuable subjective input that will help his coaches plan his detailed training plan. With a few clicks on his mobile phone, Peter responds that he is feeling tired. He has suffered a series of small injuries recently which have affected him and require attention. Steve, a veteran coach at the club, is preparing today's training session for the under-21 team. Steve is reviewing each player's latest data, including their performance, assessments, training sets, and injuries. Thanks to the Clariba Act-In Football solution, he is able to rapidly and easily navigate through many data points previously not available to him. Equipped with these insights, Steve puts together the training plan for the day, with the objective to work on improving the team's and the individual player's performance. Alerted by Peter's condition, Steve meets Peter before the training to show him his performance data. At Steve's office, he shows Peter how his subjective input is predicting a high risk of injury. They both agree to take Peter out of the group training and have Peter focus on the special recovery session the system has proposed. It's match day, and Peter's team is up against the leading team in the under-23 league. In the second half, Peter converts a well-placed pass and scores a beautiful goal. The team wins this critical game. In the post-match analysis, Steve runs through the performance analysis on his iPad with the team. Peter's goal was not a streak of luck. The data showed that Peter had been running 40% more than his peers. allowing him to be well positioned on the pitch to receive and convert this pass. This goal was just a matter of time. Floriba Act in Football delivers football performance insights to teams every day. SAP and Floriba, the winning alliance for high performance in football.
Excellent. Now the question is that fiction or is that reality? I think you'll soon find out as part of this this conversation that we're having this afternoon. But I want to start with some of the challenges that are prominent in professional football, especially in around the performance management area for players and teams. As you see on the left-hand side, one of the big challenges is we have multiple systems, and those systems are increasing as we are getting more and more sensors, as we're getting more video data, as we're getting data from GPS systems, etc. We're having a complete data explosion, and it's very challenging to bring that data together to then understand what is actually going on the pitch and during training sessions. So massive amounts of data, we call that also big data, right? And at the same time, football organizations typically are focused on winning and playing games, preparing their teams, and so there's really a lack of maturity on how to deal with the technological aspects of dealing with football performance. Another big challenge is as these new systems come in that record video, new sensors, and also GPS devices, for example, that are used in the training, this data needs to be integrated, and it's very complex to do that if you don't have the understanding of how this works. And of course, many organizations have over time purchased or built their own systems, and they are very challenging to also integrate into a repository. And all of this leads ultimately to a lack of communication between the different departments. Everyone is using their Excel sheets and it's very, or their systems, and there's very little cross-communication, cross-departmental communication between the different teams, which makes it very challenging to get a 360-degree view of a player and also of the team, right? Because there could be a medical condition that is impacting training capabilities, or it could be subjective input, such as bad sleeping habits that might have an impact on the performance of a player. And if you don't have all this in one repository, that makes it very challenging. So where we want to get to is, of course, a 360-degree view, ideally in a modern tablet or desktop form, in which we can both integrate to these external systems and review all the data within the solution, and at the same time also enter new findings that we have throughout the training, through tests, medical, etc., and sort of build a 360-degree view of the player and their performance. And so the journey I'm going to take you on is how we worked with different organizations to really get to this 360-degree view, how we integrate it to various different third-party systems, which bring us IoT data and other information sources, and as well how we use that data once we're able to collect, and once we've collected this data and we've put this together, how we can start looking at applying machine learning to gather and generate more value from the solution. Our first project was actually with the Qatar Stars League, with the Aspire Academy, probably one of the most well-funded academies in the world. They have about 14 teams, 35 coaches, quite a few players. And the focus here was in an on-premise solution to integrate to various data systems and focus on performance, technical, tactical, and the match analysis of the players. And I'm going to show you an example of what that looks like in these slides. And you will have seen in the video some of the things that you might recognize here, obviously with a slightly different design. But we're combining video data with performance data, where the players can basically compare themselves to the rest of the Stars League, to UEFA data, and also can track how their training performance and how their assessments are working. So this application has been running for the last, I would say, 3 years, and is available for both the teams and also for the players. as you can see here, we have basically the application that the player can look at so they can compare themselves against the rest of the team. And also, we were talking earlier of this 360-degree view, which we're achieving not only with data we're getting from devices, from video, and from other sources, but also with subjective data that we can bring in that we will then use for the analysis of why a player is performing well or what might need improvement. So this was an on-premise, pretty classic implementation. And on the basis of our success there, we won a project for probably one of the most prestigious soccer associations in the world, the Italian national team, which is very similar in size. And here the objective was really to take it one step further and to expand the solution into also medical, nutrition, and scouting, and quite a few other areas because they had a completely new requirements and wanted to really have an end-to-end cycle of data collection and data analysis. And I won't go into this slide in a lot of detail, but you see here the different areas that we are covering in the solution with the different topics that we cover, right? But if we're talking about AIoT today, right, a big focus was on the different connectors. So we have around 12 different interfaces that connect to external data sources, which are those IoT data sources, whether that's video that captures certain behavior on the pitch, as well as the GPS sensors that they wear during the training, which generates all the information around not only their position, but also the biometric information that is collected by the sensors, whether that's the heart rate zone or the accelerations, deceleration. All this information is now loaded into the cloud. What we see here in between are different services that we provide. Obviously, this is the heart and soul of the solution, which is the data model on one hand, and on the other hand, we have sort of an application layer that provides different services that we then push into the user interface. To show you some examples of what that looks like, obviously you'll see an improvement in the design. You'll see here how we have replaced a medical application that was a standalone application that the medical team used. That is now integrated into the solution. They can upload also images, and in the future there will be certain integrations to other solutions that maybe will check the saliva before and after a match to be able to understand if there's any impact in terms of hormones and other things that you can measure through gathering saliva or blood samples or potentially urine samples. So the integration of new systems will certainly continue as we continue expanding this solution. Now, I think the challenge with AI, as you may have experienced yourselves, is that the first thing that is absolutely required is that we have the data in a repository. We have trust the data, we have the data quality. Then we can start looking at building certain models that will help us to gain a business value from the solution. And certainly there's some areas that we have worked with the Italian national team that we want to continue expanding on and build more models as we go. But let's say the key focus areas, certainly if you look at football, are always around injury. How can we prevent injury? And that will depend on potentially the training sets that we do day 3, day 2, day 1 prior to a match. And of course, we'll want to look at other information, such again as the subjective information that we have collected from the players. We'll want to look at RPE, the rate of perceived exertion, how stressed is a player after the training or after the match, which is something that we use in the final initial load, where we basically look at how was the RPE for each player throughout the week to then predict how they will play on match day, right? And vice versa. If we want to achieve a certain RPE during the match day, what are the training RPE that we need to try and achieve throughout the week? So that is something that we look at. And that will, of course, also have a big impact on injury prediction, because if we have a player that is we're driving them too hard, that might cause injury over time. And then the other thing that we look at is if we are going to have a match against another team, we'll try and analyze the critical KPIs that against this opponent are important, and the contribution of players to these KPIs, to then figure out what is the ideal lineup that we want to propose, right, for the next match. We're also working with an organization that takes video data. They have the performance data that they derive from videos, and one of the things that they're looking at, and we would integrate then into this solution as well, is to understand, based on the players that you see on the video, when a player or a team is switching from a defensive to an attack, and vice versa. So to understand better the types of play that are employed by the different teams and which KPIs are the critical ones. So there's a lot of additional work that can be done in this space. But again, I think the key thing here is that IoT and that connection to the data, and bring that all together in a cleansed fashion so that we can then work on building the models that we need in the AI space to drive further performance. And that certainly is still a very young field. There is no easy recipe to this. This will take a lot of modeling and a lot of testing and remodeling to ensure that over time these models are delivering the value that is there. And of course, there will always be the human element that needs to be taken into consideration to verify what we are seeing in the data. But we have run the model with one of the clubs a couple of years ago, and we identified that one player was, when they had an outside game, if this one player was on the pitch, that the likelihood of them losing was higher. And guess what? That player is no longer with that team. And that is something the coach knew and understood. But when he saw this information out of the AI engine and the model that we had built, it was the perfect combination to allow to take a information-based decision. All right. Now, naturally, as you've seen, this is quite a complex project with a lot of different components to it. The solution that we built with the Italian team is probably 37 to 40,000 hours of effort that's in there. It's a massive project with up to 15 people of our own team, and the integration to multiple different systems with a lot of data coming in. And you know, today I wanted to focus a bit on the challenges and the lessons learned. And I'll use the opportunity to, at the same time, introduce to you a quick preview of the Ignite framework that we'll be speaking about in the next couple of minutes. And I can only say, I wish we would have had this at the time that we kicked this project off, because we could have saved ourselves a lot of challenges along the way. And I'll talk to you and give you some introductions on some of those challenges that we faced. I think the important one, I think for any project, but of course for a project of this type, the executive stakeholders are critical to have on board, and also to have the right team members. So it's really important to look at, when I'm trying to build a project or a product like this, right? Do I have enough support from the management team? And we've struggled with that throughout the project, and also didn't always have the right team members that we need for a project as complex as this on board. And so in this framework, you'll learn a lot around the product organization and how to set up a team so that you can have a successful implementation. I think another challenge was that you know, you speak of big bang projects. Let's try and get the entire solution built and then roll it out, right? Or taking a more agile approach. And in hindsight, it would have been a lot better for us to go module by module. You saw that we had a lot of modules in this solution, and we went with this customer with a big bang approach. And that has a lot of challenges, because you have a lot of different players that need to be trained, that need to understand how the solution works, and that doesn't make it all too easy. And again, I think here in the framework, you'll see, you know, the different components of that and how best to use an agile approach to deliver success in a solution as complex as this one. The other topic that was important, of course, for us was to learn how to actually build a solution like this with all the pipeline and the combination of components that need to be put in place. So that took quite a while, and again, the framework will lead you to it, which is a really fantastic way to understand how to set yourself up and how to learn about what are the components that you need to take care of. And I think we got a few right, but certainly there could have been a lot of things that we could have improved would we have had this framework earlier. And of course, we had you saw the amount of components, you saw the different screens that we had. So we have about 160 screens in this solution, and that means that there's a lot of testing that has to go on, and a lot of user verification. And so the verification validation model that you'll find in this framework is going to really help you understand what you need to look out for. So, in hindsight, I think this is this would have been an amazing solution for us to have to look at. Whether or not the Italian national team or any of our other customers will win the World Cup is yet to be seen. But I think one thing is clear, and we saw that in the Asian Cup. And if you want to look that up, Asian Cup. I think 2 years ago, our first customers that I presented to you won with a massive difference against all other teams. And what's clear is that if you have this capability, you have a competitive advantage. And that's where the future of sports performance is definitely going. And with the increase of the capabilities coming from sensors, and of course the frameworks that allow you to actually use and employ those sensors during the game, not just in training, is going to provide so much more data and so many more data streams that is going to make these solutions even more interesting. So with that, I'd like to thank you for today and hand over to Dirk, the brainchild of the framework.
Mark, thanks a lot. Thank you. Okay, I will never watch a soccer game again with the same thinking about what's happening behind the scenes. Thanks, Mark, for sharing. Thorsten and Laurens earlier on were talking about how we got together in January with about 15 people bringing in very different perspectives. I think not every AIoT project is as exciting, Mark, as what you just presented. A lot is more bread and butter, or actually really dealing with a lot of legacy, etc. And what we really saw is that the number of complexities that you find in an AIoT project is actually large. Yeah, and actually when we started working on this and really putting together the framework, we realized that most likely you will never ever find a single product manager, program manager, engineering manager, etc., who has experience in all these fields, right? So Mark was talking early on a lot about enterprise application integration, bringing data from existing applications. That is something that's constantly missed, in my experience, in the early stages of IoT and AI projects. So this is something not to be underestimated. Then obviously, what's very different from your box standard cloud application development project is you suddenly have people running around with a soldier and iron, right? So basically building custom hardware, right? And then last but not least, basically the physical product design and manufacturing. I mean, Mark, in your case, most likely the shirt that's carrying the sensor is not going to be altered, right? But when you're attaching a sensor to a forklifter or to a truck or something like this, you have to think about, well, where do I actually put the gateway? How do I actually connect it as part of the assembly process? How do I get a power supply to the gateway? Where do I put the antenna? All these kind of things. And then last but not least, all this sometimes really scary stuff that you need to know about AI, that takes at least 2 PhDs, I think, to fully comprehend. So how do you bring all of these different perspectives together and make them manageable for a product manager in a product development effort. So as Mark was showing early on, this is basically what came out of it over the last half year. And I very briefly would like to give a demo to you. Jonas, if we could just briefly switch to the online version of this. So thank you. This is basically the Ignite framework. If you go to the user group homepage, you can easily get there. And as you can see, the framework basically looks at both the agile development that you typically find in a cloud environment, but it also looks at what's happening on the asset, hardware development, the embedded, sometimes very low-level technical stuff, running on real-time operating systems, etc., where agile has not yet really become a, let's say, dominant force. Although obviously integrating agile with this type of environment is super important. Everybody now wants to build cars which can switch on features on demand. Over-the-air updates into this environment are becoming more and more important. And if you basically look at this framework, the nice thing about this is it puts all of this together in one perspective. And then there's about, I would say, 2.5 days of training effort hidden behind this. We just in the user group did a final review this morning. It took us about half an hour to just go through everything. And yes, it can be sometimes a little bit overwhelming, but that's the whole point of basically having a framework that puts everything together and makes this approachable to all the people in the team, and also gives you a common language. Okay, something like this does not work without putting the training effort in. But the good thing is it's there, it's online, you can explore it yourself, it's all open source. We will not have time to really do a deep dive. As I said, it is quite comprehensive, but you can see here we're covering the AI perspective, we're covering the IoT perspective, we're looking at business models. What can help me to basically capture the essence of the business model enabled by AI and IoT. We're looking at the product architecture from the different important perspectives. So the business perspective, how are end users using this? What's the required data and functionality in there? How do you implement it? And then how do you actually bring all of this over to the agile product development side of things, where you will basically find people who think in terms of product canvas, story map, backlog, etc. Right? How do you bring all of this together? And once you have done this, basically then, how do you basically set up DevOps and infrastructure? Everybody can do this today for a standard cloud project, but when you're adding OTA for remote updates of assets in the field, suddenly it becomes more complex. When you're then basically looking at how is, for example, the AI DevOps different from a traditional cloud DevOps, etc., you'll find there's a certain complexity in here, and there's solution patterns described in here for how to address this. Then obviously, when you take this to the perspective of trust and security, how do you address this? How do you expand this kind of like DevSecOps perspective to also cover remote assets, to cover AI and so on? Then we have the whole topic of robustness. How do you ensure that your systems will be robust? Then, as Mark said earlier on, we have the whole topic of verification and validation, again, for cloud, for networked assets and devices, for AI. So how do you bring all of this together? And then, again, as Mark was saying earlier on, you also have the perspective of the product organization. So there you need to basically combine the ideal agile organization that you would love to have together with what your customer is forcing you to do sometimes, yeah, be it an internal or an external customer. The typically also ad hoc type of project management that you'll find in this type of environment. How do you bring these different perspectives together? And then also, how do you go about deciding what do you want to build yourselves versus what you want to acquire? And then how do you actually control this acquisition process, which in an AIoT solution can also be quite complex. So again, the framework provides a lot of support here, helping you to understand, for example, how your resourcing and procurement process can go hand in hand, for example, with your own development processes and so on. And then last but not least, service operation. Yeah, so you have your AIoT enabled forklifter out in the field, and the forklifter driver calls you up and says, my forklift can't find his IP address. I hate your product. What do you do, right? And once you have solved this type of problem, how do you go from this basic enablement and IT service management perspective to field services, where the power of AIoT actually really comes in, where you take the data, you take the AI intelligence you get out of this, and you can actually give advice to the poor forklift driver in the field to help him with operational problems and so on. So all of this basically is covered in the framework. And if you just go back to the last slide, you can see, yeah, this is basically what we want to achieve with the user group. Yeah, so 3 more slides. Yep. So this is the ad hoc project management I was talking about early on. A little bit further. Yep. Pretty much the second last slide. 1 more, 2 more, 1 more, and 1 more. Excellent, right? So basically, yeah, we bring together practitioners, yeah, who are working on different exciting scenarios. We have the idea to really develop detailed case studies around this so that you can learn. Yeah. So let's say you are now working on an industrial solution. What does an industrial solution have to do with AI and soccer? I believe that there are a lot of lessons learned that we can take out of this cross-industry. We have, as Lawrence mentioned earlier, on these boot camps, and we're jointly now working on the Ignite AIoT Framework, and we would simply like to invite you to join us, either put work in, that would be very welcome, or simply be there and participate and yeah, share experiences and get insights into good practices yourselves. Website is open as of today. It's still a little bit beta, but you know, it's a community-driven project, so there you go. And with this, we're at the end of the presentation part, and we would like to take the next 15 minutes or so to invite Lawrence back, Mark back, and yeah, basically allow for questions from the audience.
Via the chat.
Via the chat. Excellent.
And there is one question already.
Excellent.
Which has been posted in the chat, which I see here, which is probably a question to you, Dirk. What is the connection to Apache Ignite?
The connection to, well, there's no connection that I'm aware of. It's a coincidence that they also use the term Ignite.
I thought so.
So no, we don't force you to run on Apache. I'm pretty sure it's a good open source framework, but we don't make any assumptions about this. We simply help you selecting the best technology, but I don't think that as a user group we should make direct recommendations in this direction.
Absolutely. Again, inviting everyone to ask questions via the Teams chat. Or before you do that, I have one more question, again to you, Dirk, about really where do you see this going? Where do you see this AIoT ecosystem and the AIoT user group going? What are the next steps? What is the plan?
Sure, what's the plan? So, I mean, today is pretty much the first day where we took this to the public. So obviously we're very curious about your feedback. I think for us it's really important that we ground this in reality, so that we find a lot of real world case studies, practitioners who can basically give us feedback on what works, what doesn't work, round up the framework. I think it's also important, that we spread the word, so that we basically work with partners to get the word out, make all of this known to the world, so that we find people who get excited about this, start using this. We want to see what the demand is, so we have ideas for a training course. In fact, I have delivered an Ignite AIoT training course now about every 3 months or so for the last 9 months, and that was extremely promising. We got a lot of very encouraging feedback. So depending on how much demand there is, I could imagine that we will have a train the trainer type of program to make this as easily accessible as possible for everybody. Lawrence, you said earlier on, there's available services available for people who put effort in there, such as some of the consulting partners, for example, who help building this up. They can basically also look into some kind of certification, and hopefully over time this will become an established framework for helping people to reduce the risk in their AIoT projects, improve time to market, and deliver successful and exciting products.
So established frameworks, just to repeat a couple of the key points, established framework, training offering, knowledge sharing specifically about this framework and making it applicable in the world.
Yeah.
Excellent. I have one more question here, which I'll ask later, but first go to Mark. Mark, you were active in Europe and the Middle East, as you mentioned. You've been also part of the January boot camp, and you must be, with Clariva, the firm you built, you're obviously aware of other user groups and other communities like this. What's different here?
Okay, well, I think obviously the user group right now is still a smaller group, which will change thanks to everyone who's joining here today, hopefully. And I think what's different here is that typically user groups are coming from one field or one software product, let's say. In this case, there's a diverse team of people that have come together from different industries, different backgrounds, both from academia, from the industry, and I think that brings a completely new flavor, new opportunities. And I think what's really cool about this team here is very open-minded. When we look at the framework, we had a session today, right? And the feedback really is okay. This came from us, but how can we make this better? How can we make this applicable? How can we bring this out to the market in the best possible way? And so this is something that will grow with the community, and I think the team members that are part of the founding team members, and hopefully many of you will join. I think we can really build something that will be applicable and that will provide a competitive advantage, right, to the German Mittelstand and the target audience that we're trying to build this for.
I think it's very interesting that you mentioned the German Mittelstand in one sentence where you speak English. So just a word on this. Yes, we started off, with a team of people coming out of Germany. But I think what was interesting for me to see in the last couple of months that we have really gotten a lot of interest from people around the world. So I don't know, René, if you're there from AIoT Canada, I think this is off to a very promising start. Lots of interest there. I've been talking to, I don't know, CK, It's late in the evening in Singapore if you made it, but yeah, that's also, I think, an interesting link. We already have some contacts in California. We have some interest in China. So I really do think that this topic is a global topic. And yes, it is important that we develop a language that the SMEs will be able to adopt this, and that similarly we also have the ability to support startups, but also global organizations who do this on a very large scale. And I think that remains hopefully to do.
Renee, since you're there, Renee just answered your question with a big capital letter yes. So welcome to Canada, I think, right? And Renee is actually also active asking questions. And the first question is probably going to you, Dirk, and maybe also Thorsten, if you are still able to participate. The question is, what's the best way to contribute to the AIoT framework?
The best way to contribute is to join one of these regular framework content review calls that as of next week we will start having. Before this, it was all a little bit, again, more ad hoc, yeah, but that's one of the things we also discussed in the bootcamp this week, that we now have reached a level of maturity where we will have regular exchanges about this. We will do this in time zones which are friendly both to Asia and the West Coast. I don't know yet how we will do this, but we'll somehow find a magic way. There what we want to do is we want to somehow manage to make sure that this is not, becoming bloated. So we don't want to just add content and content and content. So we want to have a core of a framework that can still, be taught in a 2.5-day masterclass or something like this. But then we also want to be able to have particular modules, that you can basically take when you look at one specific problem to solve this problem, and also make sure that it plugs into the bigger picture. And I do think there is lots of opportunities for people to get involved in the content development following this approach.
Just building on that, and now switching my hat from being the moderator now to being part of the steering committee of this user group. There's more, and you see it here on the slide. There's activities you can contribute to, like hosting an Ignite talk, as we just saw, like really linking the framework and the methodology that we're building to real-life case studies and sharing the knowledge about those by doing this. Participating, obviously, in the boot camps, which we are planning to have probably in a semi-annual frequency, like we had in January, we had now in the fall, again sometime in spring next year. So these are a couple of ways to contribute and to become part of this great group of great people, as Mark mentioned. Renee, there's one more question that you mentioned, that you asked, and this is one, again, more content specific, and I'm asking Mark yourself again, don't be surprised. How do you evaluate the international maturity of this IoT and I binding? I think it's very good you have you are here, so.
Yeah, I think that's a really good question. I think ultimately, by your contributions would be my answer, because we can't be everywhere, and I think I see different maturity levels in different regions, and I see different requirements from different types of customers. But ultimately, I think the maturity can only improve with input that we receive from all of you that have connected today, and those that we reach in the future, and for you to contribute, especially with the case studies. I think that's going to be a really important point, because the case studies ultimately what will show whether or not the application of the framework has delivered value, right? I mean, it's great to have a framework, but if no one uses it, it doesn't have any value. So I think the case studies and the learnings from the case studies is what's going to drive this, and I think we'll see probably very similar situations by industry, right? Maybe some differences by region, but certainly it can only happen with the input of not just the three of us and the
founding members.
Is soccer the most advanced AIoT industry so far?
No, I don't think so.
Which one is?
Ooh, that's a good question. I don't know. I mean, utilities has done quite a bit. I think with optimization of power grids and so on. Know which other ones. Certainly the things that are happening in the autonomous vehicles is moving in the right direction. But soccer for sure has a way.
There's one more I would nominate, which is smart speakers with voice AI, which is connected things.
Oh yes, absolutely.
Voice AI. I think we're gonna have an Ignite talk about that one relatively soon. I hope.
Very good.
Good. Excellent. There's no more questions on the chat. Are there any questions from the room here? Doesn't look like it, so I think we're almost through. Thank you again for giving us the deep dive into the framework as it stands. Thank you for giving us a fascinating talk about soccer, the AIoT application in soccer, and thanks everyone on the call. Again, we're hoping to get this off to a very, very good start. Interesting topic, as we saw very early on. Wikipedia doesn't yet know about AIoT, so we're going to change that. Thanks, guys. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.